and we went to the beach, and she tasted the water. That's it. So much of salty. She was telling me, why can't we take it in bottles and take it and we can make sambar rasam and all with that. Still, I remember that. So it's like that. So now, so how to conserve the water? Uh, I will give to Mr. Ramesh to go through that. Ramesh, it is. Oh, so sorry. One second, Ramesh.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We'll introduce, sir.
Yeah, you introduce our speaker to everyone.
Sure, sir. So very good evening to all the respected chairman, secretary, and our committee members, and all the invitees who have joined along with the chief guest. So definitely, I think today is a World Water Day. So I think we need to always need to generate the younger generation about the importance of water and how we can able to preserve it. Since already they are saying only 3% of fresh water is there. So in this scenario, we got a wonderful speaker today, our Sri Ramesh Subramanian, who is going to talk about especially about this water conservation and the marine point of view. So definitely his session is already, I think, enjoyed by our Tiruchi local center. So it's a great, I think, today sir has been with us in delivering his lecture. Before we undergo, we'll see his profile. Dr. Ramesh Subramanian is a graduate from Directorate of Marine Engineering Training, Calcutta, 1985 passed out, presently called IMU. Joined C as a junior engineer in Great Eastern Ship in 1986 and become chief engineer in 1992 after passing the MOT Class 1 exam conducted by DG Shipping, Government of India. Worked as a technical manager for vessel and also worked in managerial position in ship repair industry. Presently, founder and consultant for RMET Consultancy, focusing on training activities and content development in marine engineering. Conducting training workshops regularly for senior seafarers of major ship owners on loss prevention due to breakdown of hydraulic equipment. He's also a YouTuber administrator. He's also a YouTuber administering a YouTube channel for marine engineering training. A fellow member of Institute of Marine Engineers India and executive committee member of Institute of Marine Engineering Chennai branch. With a short introduction, we are great enough that we could able to have our Ramesh Subramanian sir, who's going to deliver the lecture, especially on the World Water Day, which has been announced by UN, and we are all celebrating it. So it's over to you, sir. Thank you.
Can I start, sir?
Yeah, start, please.
Okay. Thank you, Engineer Gokul, Joint Secretary. I really profoundly thank each and every one of you from the Institute of Engineers, Tamil Nadu State Center, Chairman Engineer Kannan sir.
Thank you.
Honorary Secretary Sivaraju sir, Karpasamy sir, Joint Secretary, and Gokul sir, Joint Secretary. Thank you so much for having given me the opportunity and considering it fit to call me here. Actually, that just as somebody pointed out, in Trichy there is some very evolved gentleman talking about a very big navally. Somebody is talking about a huge project. So of course you can very well understand our constraints as a marine. Of course, we won't be able to talk in detail about the high technical aspects of this complicated topic, which is in the domain of environmental engineers. So that is the truth. So, but anyway, as a common man would like to understand what is this noise all about. For the last few years, we've been talking about pollution and conservation and sustainability. So, of course, all the experts in the respective fields know this, and that is their duty to do this research and try to save the world. But what about common people like us? So, today I am going to speak not as an expert, because I am not an expert, obviously. As a marine, obviously, I can't be an expert on this topic. But I am going to talk on behalf of a common man. How the common man is perceiving this, and how the idea is just to create a small awareness to the common man. So with your permission, I'm going to share my screen, and I'll try my best to convey a little bit of whatever little bit I could pick up from all this huge complicated topic, which is the hot thing in the industry nowadays. So I'm just sharing my screen. So you all can see my screen? Yes. Can you all see my screen properly?
Yeah, very much, very much. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Can
Thank
you
you,
make
sir.
it bigger?
This is big enough, I think.
Okay,
No?
big enough, big enough, big enough.
Yeah, big, already big.
Yeah.
Yeah, big
Yeah,
enough.
it's full screen. Okay. So today being March 22nd, it's a World Water Day. And this theme for the day today, like every year we have different themes coming in. And the theme for today is making the invisible visible. Groundwater, making the invisible visible. So basically it is about conservation of water. And as I just disclosed, I'm going to talk about the importance of conservation of water from a perspective of a mariner and a commoner. So how can we simplify the whole stuff and make it and really try to understand the importance of this. So just a little bit of myself. Of course, Mr. Iei Gokul has already introduced me. So I move on. So the theme for this year is groundwater, making the invisible visible. So let us see what do we understand from this. If you all remember your grandmother or your great grandmother's time, all of us are basically from the village background. We all had a well, correct or not? And then we had a pond. If you didn't have a pond, you had a well or a small stream nearby. So just a few years back, 50 years back, groundwater was visible, correct? And then what we have done in the name of development, we have made this groundwater which was visible, we have made it invisible. And after 50 years, we suddenly become wise, and then we create a World Water Day and big noise and say, come on, now let us make the invisible thing visible again. Who made it invisible? Us. So let us understand this. So now, after all the development 50 years hence, we have big bungalows. There's no more groundwater. The groundwater was visible has become invisible. So we put a borewell pump and then put in a sump. And this guy had to take a bath, had to drink water by pulling a bucket of water from the well. He didn't have to do any exercise. After all the development, we made the groundwater invisible. And then this guy has to go to a gym to keep doing exercise. So that is the way the world is changing, you see. So from where are we coming and where are we going to? So are we really developing? Maybe yes, maybe no. So with that as a background, let us move on. This groundwater, the World Water Day is held on 22nd March every year since 1993. That means a good 25 or whatever, roughly 25 years, 28 years back, suddenly people woke up and realized that in our excitement to have comfort, maybe we are going in the wrong direction or something is seriously going to happen. Suddenly they thought of making this water. For the last 5,000 years of human existence, nobody ever thought that we should celebrate water. That was a done thing. In fact, if you remember, if anybody comes to your house, the first thing you ask them is, Sir, do you want water? Probably that is the last thing we'll ask today because water is so precious. Correct? We would offer him tea or we might even say, can you have a beer? But not water. It focuses on the importance of fresh water. This day celebrates water and raises awareness of 2.2 billion people living without access to safe water. So that is what it has come to. It is about taking action to tackle the global water crisis. So that means we all realize that we are already in crisis. So unless you make everybody aware that there's a crisis, nothing is going to happen. So that is the reason why this thing has all come about. So then when you move on, you say this day used to advocate for the sustainable management of freshwater resources. The moment you say sustainable management, then obviously very common people like us who are not gone to MBA and B school will obviously ask, what is this sustainable management? So obviously nowadays we go to Google only. For everything we have to go to Google only. You don't need any mentor to ask because Google is our mentor for everything. So you go to Google, sir, and ask him, Google, what is this sustainable management? See, nowadays we depend on Google to that extent that Goddess Saraswati is telling Brahma, my Lord, ever since mankind invented Google, they stopped worshipping me. You don't need Saraswati Devi any longer. Google is there. So if you ask Google, what is sustainability and sustainable management? So this is a type of context which comes out of the Google. What does Google say? The broader term sustainability refers to the long-term goal of building a more sustainable world And sustainable development often refers to the specific process and methods of achieving this goal. The concept is often broken into three core concepts of pillars: economic, environmental, and social. Let's move on. We keep it, just remember this, whatever we read, and move on. Groundwater, the focus is groundwater, an invisible resource with an impact visible everywhere. We must protect them from overexploitation. Abstracting more water than is recharged by rain and snow and the pollution that currently haunts them, since it can lead to depletion of this resource. Extra costs of processing it and sometimes even preventing its use. Exploring, protecting, and sustainably using groundwater will be central to surviving and adapting to climate change and meeting the needs of a growing population. That is a huge, big sentence. And you need an interpreter to come and explain what this guy means. Correct or not? So, are we impressed with that definition? Yes, we are all impressed. But have we really understood what it means? I would say somewhat. I'm not too sure. You need to be a great student of English. And you should have gone to some MBA school to understand this type of flowery language. But the common man is saying, no, some big people are talking. So, let's run away from this place. Correct or not? So basically, you see, most of the textbooks will give you big definitions. So I suddenly realized, what is the definition? Right from school days, any topic, there'll be one. First thing you start about a topic is the definition. So what is the definition? It is a collection of words which attempt to convey the meaning of a topic. But the topic, it can be understood only by a guy who is already a master of that topic. And then you see, from standard 8, we start talking about definitions. And the definition can be understood only by the expert. So, but then what is our purpose? The purpose is for the common man to be made aware of, understand and implement. Does the real user actually understand this? All the definitions and jargons make the common man think that some research work is going on and he moves away from this. So groundwater, making the invisible visible. So this is our theme for today. So how can it be interpreted by a guy who's not deep into this? You see, you have this guy happily on a hammock. This guy says, hey, why are you wasting this water? And what did this guy tell us? He says, sir, the theme for this year, groundwater make the invisible. See, invisible, the water is invisible. He is making it visible by pumping it and that water is going somewhere. So he says he is doing the job, right? He is making it visible. So things can be misunderstood unless people are made aware of. So having said that, I take the liberty of telling you a small story. Rather than getting bogged down by these huge intellectual talks, let us try and get the message across. So I am going to tell you a very small story. This will probably make us understand the whole concept of what is the sustainability and all these things which are going on, hot topics in the world. So let us just try to understand this. Many, many years back, there was this old man and an old woman. They had a small, small house. You can always recollect this with your grandparents and your great-grandparents. A small boy all. So their lifestyle was they used to do some fishing. They had a lot of sheep and a lot of trees. And they used to sell the fish. And life was very happy, very simple, small house. So time passed by, the old man died. His wife died. And this young boy grew up to be a young lad. By that time, modernity and development has set in. He started looking at how other people are living in this world of internet. I am still living in this small house, useless. The guys are like, no, they are enjoying life, and I am sitting here with a small pond and some sheep. Absolutely no good. I have to improve. I have to develop. And there are a lot of friends here. Modern guys, his friends who have gone to cities, they say, hey, come on, you're wasting your life. So he says, I got so much of resource. The typical management stuff. You have a lot of resource and you are not optimizing your resource. That's how people will tell you. Yeah, so let us optimize the resource. He says, yeah, okay. He's not happy. So he says, oh, I got so much of trees. Everything is a resource which can be monetized. So he gets a woodcutter and then chop goes the tree. And then he sets up a wood factory, wood business. So then he starts making money. So there it goes. You see, the trees are going one by one. And this guy is making himself more and more comfortable. Then suddenly he says, I have another resource. What is the other resource? I got the sheep. And this sheep is only doing nothing, just eating my grass and all that. I'm not getting any benefit out of this sheep. So what does he say? Okay, Come on, let us now try and monetize the sheep. So there goes. And then he has a meat shop, processed meat, which is in demand. You can get a lot of money. The sheep goes inside the meat shop. And then he realizes meat is selling, but what happens to the skin of the sheep? I can't throw it. That is also a resource, can be monetized. Every smallest thing has to be monetized. That is the mantra of the present day world. So he says, okay, let me have a tannery. He sets up a tannery, leather processing unit. You see, development. So obviously he starts seeing money. The sheep goes here, the meat gets processed, and the skin comes to the factory, right? And he has a bigger house. Small house has become a big house. Excellent. So he is very happy. Big house means more EMI. Why? Bank, obviously he took EMI from the bank. Big house means more EMI. His expenses have gone up. So he has to sell more and more sheep. Correct? Whatever remaining trees he has, they are all getting chopped off. Correct or not? So one by one, all the trees are getting chopped off. And then he sees, what does he see? He says, I got so much of fish. And this fish doesn't fetch me any money. Somebody said, there is a different type of fish, ornamental fish. If you have that fish, you can make lots and lots of money. Aquaculture. There it is, zoom. Okay. Some very, very fabulous fish he bought from the market, and he says, now I'm going to make a lot of money. But then what happened? Eventually he saw that he's got very less sheep left. And this big fish is eating up the small fish. You see? Suddenly he realizes nobody is small fish, all eaten up by the big fish. And what happened to this factory? It is discharging the treated water, untreated water. So that is spoiling the pond, right? Still his EMI is there. So his sheep is not there. Trees are anyway not there. The pond is getting more and more polluted. And finally, the big fish also is finished, dead. And here you have a pond which is completely dead. Now this guy has no drinking water also. He's got no resource, no drinking water. He has to buy drinking water. This is, gentlemen, this is what we know as unsustainable living. Unsustainable living. What his grandfather had, let us go back and see what did the grandfather do. The grandfather had fish, sheep, trees. He was just selling a few fish and a few sheep, 3-4 sheep in a year. And whatever he was selling, he could breed. The sheep were getting born. He might chop off one tree at a time in a year just to make enough money to be satisfied, happy. So he never ran out of money. Whatever money came, he was very happy with that little bit of money. He had a small house. This gentleman is sustainable living. This story will tell you what exactly we mean by sustainable living. The nature should be able to keep on continuously feeding. This lifestyle would have gone on for another thousands of years. Thousands of years it could have continued without a disruption. But when your greed takes over, what we'll end up with is unsustainable living. You are quickly going to run out of resources, and finally you see that panic sets in. So this is just a small story which tells us what is sustainability. Having said that, now that I am here to talk about this groundwater conservation, am I competent to talk about this? As a marine engineer, obviously you all know that I have no exposure to this very complicated environmental subject. But as an end user, yes. As a shippy, you see, what is this captain telling the company? Telling the company on the phone. Sir, we have a big problem, very big problem. We have only fresh water for only 2 days. I have no choice but to divert the vessel to Chennai to pick up 300 tons of fresh water to be able to sail further. Life is coming to a complete halt. The ship cannot sail because he doesn't have water. And what an irony! What an irony! The ship is sailing in an ocean of water. Water everywhere. But captain is terrified of a water problem. You see. So are we going to, as a marine engineer, we are an end user, so we do understand how precious is this fresh water. Such a big ship, you have just about 300 tons of water. 40 people are there. And this water has to be shared between the people and the machineries. Remember, the boiler needs fresh water. The main engines need fresh water. right? The machineries and the human being have to share. And you have to really account for every liter of water, of fresh water. So inherently as a marine engineer, we have always been very, very conservative with fresh water. We will never waste fresh water because we know the importance. Having said that, what all things we do on the ship to sustain and generate water? We have a freshwater generator. So basically we create a freshwater on board for our use. So whatever heat is generated in the engine jacket cooling water, that heat is extracted to flash the seawater and we generate fresh water. We call it waste heat recovery. And if you really think carefully, I don't know, really, is it a waste heat recovery? Because the jacket cooling water anyway, the heat would have gone into the sea directly from the cooler, correct? But now what are we doing? We are using that heat to evaporate some water here. So my jacket cooling water, which is very hot, is coming here. And I'm heating up, flashing that sea water, making some water, fresh water. And I have to condense it. Remember, I have to condense it. Then what is happening in the condenser? Again, the heat is going out to the sea. So instead of the heat from the jacket water going to the freshwater cooler, it is going to the sea from the condenser of the freshwater generator. So basically, when we say it is a waste heat recovery system, are we really recovering the heat? This gentleman will open up your eyes when you think whether it is a ship or a shore-based industry or factory, or you suddenly realize that all this waste heat recovery, whatever we talk, we are actually not recovering anything. We are just postponing, or we are just the place of discharge of that heat into the atmosphere is just somewhere else. Instead of going from the freshwater cooler, it is going out from the condenser. But what we need to realize is heat is still being put out from the engine into the sea. So this is, and then what about the RO plant? RO plants also consume energy. So somewhere they consume energy and some fossil fuel is getting burnt, and part of it is used and part of it is just thrown into the sea or into the atmosphere. So we are just heating up. So this is a very common thing, or every mariner dread to think of this. You just come out of port, you are long anchorage. Sometimes you see the ships are waiting in Chennai. You see, if you go to Marina Beach, you can see some ship is there, long. That means that ship is waiting for instructions for him to come inside. Once the port is free, that ship will be called. I have stayed in that Marina Beach in the outside for more than 2 months, 1.5 months. Remember, 1.5 months. Can you generate fresh water? No, because the engines are not running. That means that whatever you came here with 100 tons of water, now you have to keep that 100 tons of water for the next 1 month, and you don't know when the port is going to call you and say, okay, come here and discharge your cargo and go. So this is what will immediately happen. What will happen? Water will be rationed till arrival port timings. 06, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening. This is the most dreaded thing any mariner would love, or would try to get into. Everyone will hate it. And then you are working the whole day, you are sweating, but you have no water to take bath. What about this? I have gone through this also. One day you come up and you see, do not use this further by order chief officer. How can you survive like this? Because there is no water. Can you not flush with seawater? Well, this ship, the flushing system is made of fresh water. Why? Seawater flushing system means it's too much of a maintenance hazard. Corrosion. It is very tough to maintain seawater pipelines inside the ship. Correct? So many of the ships are freshwater pipelines. So now, do we have a solution for this? You have to stop eating. That's the only solution I can think of. Then, but still we consider ourselves lucky. When you hear these stories, like beginning of the program, somebody was telling me that the movie, Tanir movie, like Sarita is carrying a quantum of water for like 20 miles. When you think, oh, see these type of people, even us marine engineers feel like, okay, we are not so bad. We always used to feel we are the deprived lot, but okay, we are being very lucky compared to this. At least we never had a problem that we don't have water to drink. We always had a problem, we have no water to take a bath. But no water to drink never happened, fortunately for us. But you see, these are the reality in our rural areas. So many, still we call India as a developed country and we are sending rockets and all, but there are pockets where this is happening. And is it their fault? Maybe not. The grandmothers never had this problem. The great grandmothers never had this problem. It is because of somebody else doing something, these people are suffering like this. Having said that, let us move on and let us have a look at conservation of water and just look at it from a non-technical perspective. How does the whole thing work out? Conservation of groundwater is a thing. Imagine I got a reservoir of salt water, infinite reservoir, salty water, and I got a heat source. Obviously, you know that if I have a heat source, I'm going to have a lot of evaporation. And then you have this boy here taking a hand pump. Correct. How much can he pump? Maybe a few buckets per day. Correct. If he keeps pumping, of course, you see the water level is slowly going to reduce. By that time, the water level is going to reduce. The evaporation, water will come and fill it up. You see. That means this water level will never ever reduce. It will always be available for him to drink. Correct or not? So this is how a very sustainable loop of fresh water cycle. But then what happens? We have many reservoirs connected like this. All of them evaporation and filling. If the groundwater is fully charged or this vessel is full, any water which comes here will just flow off from here into the reservoir. Anything comes here can flow off like this to the reservoir. So that means this is the reservoir of salt water. And this, you all know that water cannot flow from a lower head to a higher head. Correct. So obviously, this balance is beautifully maintained. But then comes a situation where we start doing things like this. Correct. Initially, we will be very happy. We'll start doing pumping out this water. Now, the quantity of water coming inside from the evaporation is lesser than the quantity of water being pumped out. So you see what is happening. This level is going to go down, down, down. And what are these brown things? They are like percolations, filters. That means water is falling here and it is just not falling straight. These are, say, our ground. Slowly, water is going to get absorbed and it will fill up. That means obviously the rate of filling up of this depends on the type of soil and stuff like that. So I have quickly come down here because I pumped out too much of water. So what happens now? If the water level goes down here and I have higher head of water here, salt water, sea water will start. If you call it sea water, salty water, that will start coming here. And then this guy is now contaminated with salt. Now you see here, salt water. I don't know how many of you have ever experienced this. I can tell you, of course, most of us in Chennai would have known. In the 1990s, at least I know I am from Adayar, our water was very salty. You cannot brush your teeth. And fortunately, the government was very serious, government of the day, and they ruthlessly enforced the rainwater harvesting. And suddenly you see the whole thing improved. And ever since that day, the 1990s, the late 90s, we have had reasonable water. Now you can brush your teeth in Adayar, no problem. But there were about 4 to 5 years where we cannot wash clothes, we cannot brush teeth because the water was salty. Sea water ingress. Fortunately, it got reversed. But then what about irreversible this? That is finished. Everything is gone. What do you do about this? If you get into this, sea water is going here and this goes here and then it fills up, sea water fills up and then this goes down, it fills up and then the entire water is unusable, finished, gone. So what is happening in real life? This was what was happening. Small huts with hand-operated visible water. People were happy. So seawater was there in abundance. Seawater level is here, right? Evaporation. The clouds are formed, and then rains are coming, and then the rain is filling up. And so whatever water this guy is removing from the ground, more water is coming, and it just flows off back to the sea. So this water level is sustained or maintained, right? And then there was a beautiful balance of nature. Human being is breathing, CO2 is going out. CO2 is absorbed by the seawater. Seawater is the biggest sink for CO2. Nitrogen is also getting absorbed by seawater. There are so many things happening in seawater. Planktons are there, correct? So these planktons are absorbing sunlight. And they are like, it takes in seawater here like this. Sorry, carbon dioxide. And it takes in sunlight and it releases oxygen for us. You see? the cycle is so beautifully going on and on. The amount of CO2, the amount of oxygen and all that, for thousands of years, they have been having a particular ratio and nothing is happening. It has not changed. But then things change. What has happened then? Everything is gone like this. And then we have modern buildings and huge pumping of water from the ground with factories, right? So what is happening now? The factories are basically what? They are generating combustion. Huge combustion is happening inside the factory. Something is getting, either fossil fuel is getting burned inside the factory for sure. So that means nitrogen, NO2, so a lot of carbon dioxide is released. So what is carbon dioxide? It is a greenhouse gas. Lot of carbon dioxide and nitrogen oxide is released. Nitrogen dioxide. So nitrogen dioxide actually, what does it happen? What does it do? It is responsible for creating ozone. Ozone at a very big height is good. It cuts off the sun's UV rays. But ozone at the bottom, lower levels is very harmful. It becomes a greenhouse gas. So what is greenhouse gas? Whatever sunlight is coming and getting reflected from the ground, that is trapped by the greenhouse gas. That is why the earth is warm. Otherwise, we would have been an ice age. We can't survive. All of us will be always in minus. If all the entire radiation of the sun's energy at night goes back into space, we will not be alive. And then effluent is coming here. Correct. So what has happened now? With so much of pollution here, of the pollution of the factories, what you have is so much of nitrogen. When the rains are coming, we have acid rain. And this acid rain is coming into the groundwater. And it is going to directly contaminate by percolation. And this is also coming here. Understand? To the seawater. So as this goes down and down, groundwater, because of the extraordinary pumping of groundwater, seawater ingress is happening. And slowly, it will go and contaminate the entire span of groundwater. Table will go down. Okay. And this industrialization, what has happened? So much of heat is getting into. See, this is trapping the heat. This is a barrier. Greenhouse gas is a barrier, which is not allowing the heat to escape from the Earth's atmosphere. So all this heat which is coming out is now more heat is getting trapped. So we have global warming. Global warming means the temperature of the Earth is going up. If the temperature of the Earth is going up, we have more evaporation. See, more evaporation. More evaporation means more condensation, more water. By the time what we are done, we have found a very great or very bad thing called plastic. We have littered the entire surface of the earth with plastic. So whatever oil is coming, whatever water is coming as rainwater might not enter. And then, all these modern urban buildings fully cemented with seawater. Why? Oh, dust. Let us not have dust. Full of cementing. Everywhere cement. So all the water which is coming here is finding its way directly back to the ocean and nothing is percolating down. And even if it's percolating down, it is percolating down with all these effluents. Right? Very few people are actually treating it. So it's all going down. So basically the quality, the quantity of groundwater is depleting at a very remarkably high rate. What else is happening? This nitrogen dioxide which is going out is also getting absorbed by seawater more. Nitrogen dioxide becomes a nutrient at some point of time for all these planktons and all these living things in the sea. So what is happening? This algae which is there starts growing rapidly because now they are getting a good source of food. Nitrogen dioxide. We have something called the algal bloom. The entire sea will be covered with this, or at least big freshwater ponds and all that. Wherever you have a big surface, suddenly gets covered with algae. We call it the algae bloom. This will block the seawater sunlight from going inside. What happens? The sunlight cannot go into the sea. All the organisms here are suffering. So now how can this plankton give us the oxygen? So that means this guy cannot give us the oxygen here. So you see how the whole thing is, we are just completely breaking the cycle of the very beautifully balanced stuff is getting broken. Then you get impressed. Oh, the wheat which is growing in China is fantastic. US wheat, US corn, sweet corn, American sweet corn. Wow, it's sick. We should also grow it here. Then I have the crops. Correct. What is this crop? American sweet corn. This crop was not supposed to be growing here. This crop was supposed to be good for America, but here it wants too much of water. I don't have so much groundwater, but I am forcibly trying to cultivate a crop which is not native, non-native crops. And this is the last nail in the coffin, right? I have more and more crops in the, I just call it agricultural development, but actually I am growing crops which are not suited for that particular locality. I am pumping more water than necessary. So overall, I am just eating away my water. Having said that, let us look at this beautiful, God has made the earth such a way that there's a beautiful balance of energy. If the energy coming from the sunlight is 100%, you see, 100% is going out. How, whatever, scattered back by the air, reflected by the cloud, reflected by the surface, you see. So if you see, all this adds to 100%. Outgoing radiation, incoming radiation, 100, 100. That is how the Earth's temperature has been maintained for so many years. Correct? Incoming, outgoing, balancing. So obviously, whatever is the temperature is written. But then we have our industrialization. What is happening? Industrialization means what? Factories. Factories means what? We are removing the fossil fuel from the ground. Right? We are removing the fossil fuel from the ground and we are using and combusting the fossil fuel from here, bring it here, burn it here, and then we are releasing heat energy and NOx and carbon dioxide. This was not a part of nature. This was underground, inside. We have brought it to the surface and we have started doing all these things. So now you can, gentlemen, you can very well see what is happening. 100%, if 100 units of energy is coming because of the sun, 100 was going out, everything is okay. But I am adding 5 units of energy because of this fossil fuel is releasing energy. And I made sure that greenhouse gases are not making sure that this energy is trapped here and not going out. This is what is called global warming. Global warming. You don't have to be a great environmental expert to understand. We are generating heat and we are not allowing the heat to escape into the space. We are heating up the whole space. Now, the law of nature is so beautiful. It was balanced so well. You see here, whenever a human being is eating, what are we doing? Hydrocarbon. Our food is hydrocarbon. See? And we are taking in oxygen. Oxygen plus hydrocarbon is carbon dioxide plus water plus energy. And this is the energy where we are doing all our work. So this is our the human being. The same thing is happening in a engine, diesel engine. Same thing. We are putting in fuel, which is hydrocarbon. We are putting in atmosphere, which is oxygen. And I'm generating heat and water vapor. And carbon dioxide is going out. And energy. Of course, the energy is the one which is driving the ship or doing whatever and all that is happening. So this is happening for millions of years, this thing. Of course, this is the only new thing. Human beings are breathing, taking in oxygen and breathing out CO2. So obviously, the world should have more CO2. But no, there was a balance designed by God. What was that? The plants are taking in CO2 and releasing oxygen. The planktons in the ocean are taking in CO2 and releasing out oxygen by a process called photosynthesis. Correct? So that means whatever carbon dioxide we are emitting, that carbon dioxide is used up by the oceans and the plants, and they are restoring the balance of the percentage of gases in the atmosphere. Correct? So if you look at it, now what is new? This balance was going on very well. Now what have we done? Our population has increased. Correct? Our population has increased here. Trees are not there. Plus, we have factories which are taking the fossil fuel and burning all over the place. That means every industry converts energy trapped in fossil fuel and adds it to the atmosphere and contributes to global warming. And global warming, you know that floods, if the earth is warm, then of course, wherever that land is there, it is getting parched. So obviously, the groundwater below this, on the surface groundwater is just evaporating like mad. It is not getting recharged. So it is creating a water scarcity and pollution and all those things are happening. Correct or not? On top of this, we have the algal bloom. That's it. This is the full no-no. This entire thing we are now diminishing, only we are increasing this side. So having said that, having understood this, what are we Marinians doing about this? We are all sailing there. So going back to that story of that old man. Correct. Plastic. At least we have ensured that we have a very, very strict garbage management policy. We cannot throw plastic into the sea. We are protecting the ocean. We cannot, every garbage, whether it is plastic, non-plastic, oil, whatever it is, anything has to be accounted for in shipping. We have a very, very strict policy of garbage management. Next, oil and pollution. Oil pollution, no. It is, we have got strict rules by the United Nations with the respective conventions called Marpol Annex 1, noxious liquid substances in bulk, Annex 2, harmful substances in package form, that means chemical, oil, air pollution, everything has got a very, very strict regime imposed on us by the IMO and enforced by the governments throughout the world to make sure that we don't pollute. Correct? We have air pollution. See, all these things are controlled. Then what about, I told you about that crop, right? The previous slide I told you about, like, no, we put American corn, which is not supposed to be growing there. That is the invasive species. So what are we doing about that in the marine field? I had to ensure that the fish which grows in Australia doesn't come to UK because I'm taking in ballast. So I have a ballast water management plan, which ensures that these type of things are not going to happen. Correct? That means I have to treat the water which I'm carrying in Australia, treat it, kill all these organisms. And by the time I come back to Europe, I ensure that no living organism from Australia ever lands up in the waters of the UK. Right? So this is how air pollution, oil pollution, biodiversity, exchange, no, garbage, we are very, very strictly following. So this is the best we can do as mariners. But then I am not authorized, I am not privy to the information. What about the MSMEs and other unorganized sectors? Sugar, cement, fertilizers, steel, automobile, I have an idea. Automobiles are controlled. I mean, we have pollution, Bharat 3, Bharat 5 and Bharat 6, whatever. Automobile is, I know that things are happening. Road, yes, some form of regime is there. Pollution test is there, at least to see our pollution of our two-wheelers, four-wheelers. Agricultural industries, food processing units, I have no idea about whether you have a very, very strict enforcement policy by the government on these industries. Are they polluting? Leather industry, are they polluting? Are they depleting the water resources? Do they have a management plan? I am not the right guy to talk about all this. So basically, it all comes down to pollution, water resources, disposal, and energy efficiency. So this is what comes to the root of the problem. So as mariners, this is what we are doing. But historically, yes, you'll be, just to brief you up about what are the type of things which happen on the ship. Whatever energy is coming out as an exhaust in a diesel engine, the ship's engine is very big, right? So much of heat energy is going out of the exhaust. So we are using it and using a turbocharger to trap that energy for sure. And using it to burn more fuel inside the engine. So we call it as waste heat recovery system. Freshwater generator, I already told you. We are like utilizing the jacket water heat in the cooling water of the engine and to create some fresh water. This is actually useful. This is definitely useful. But as I told you, we are not the heat which has come out of the fossil fuel doesn't go back. Just because they are using doesn't mean that no, that heat is like well utilized. The heat is still going into the atmosphere for sure. Then we have exhaust gas economizer where the heat from the main engine exhaust gases are converted to steam. But then we call it as a waste heat recovery. But is it a waste heat recovery? Actually, doubtful. Maybe not, because I am creating steam and that steam is now again condensed in the condenser. That means the heat is still going out into the sea. Now what has happened? The heat is going out through the condenser instead of going out from the funnel. So it is just, I made myself more comfortable, but I have actually not reduced the heat going and contributing to global warming. Let us be very, very aware of that. Then from the ship's equipment, say for example, hydraulic, a gear pump is always going to, whenever the equipment is running and my thing is, my consumer is not working, correct? So what happens is my relief valve will open up whenever my pump is on and my consumer is not on. So what will happen? My relief valve will open up and it will go and generate heat. Every time a consumer is not working and my pump is on, it generates heat. It may be very, very small compared to the bigger in the global perspective, what I talk about. But this is heat, and people have been very smart enough to identify this. So we say, no, we should not have this. Of course, any reduction of fuel oil, you don't need any regulation to force you to do that, because fuel oil is money. So who doesn't want to reduce his expenses by trying to have efficiency? So efficiency in the terms of consumption of fuel oil had always been there, not because of any great love for environment, because of the love for money. That means I have moved away from all these fixed delivery pumps, correct, and I have replaced it with variable delivery pumps. More or less, most of the big time equipments, the high energy consuming equipment like cargo gears, they all have switched on to variable delivery pumps, correct. And then of course, we also have the electronics and electricals are developed to extend that. We have VFDs and stuff like that. So yes, historically, for the last 50 years, we have been reducing our carbon footprint, if I might put it that way. Our carbon footprint is definitely going down, or we are trying our best. Carbon footprint, as I told you, again, is driven by two things. One is the fear of getting penalized because of pollution. Other one is my bunker means my fuel oil costs are going down. So that is also that angle. And my main propulsion engine, that has become sensitive. Now I have gone fully electronic. I have moved away from the typical cam operated engines to an engine which is now camless and electronic injection. So where I have my multi-mode injection profiles. So I can reduce my NOx. NOx is a very, very dangerous stuff. The more you put NOx, as I told you, it adds to the greenhouse gas. NOx by itself is not greenhouse, but it generates ozone and adds to the greenhouse gas and global warming. And so many other hazards are coming because of NOx. And NOx is happening because of the high peak pressures inside the diesel engine combustion chamber. So by restricting that, by tampering with or manipulating the way the fuel is being burnt inside the engine, I am able to reduce my NOx footprint. So having said that, the future is, now this is something for all of us to understand. You see here, a typical fuel, if it is giving you 100 units of energy, only 50% is going out as shaft power on a diesel engine. The remaining energy from the fuel, which because of combustion is going out to the air cooler, radiation, exhaust gas, jacket water, lubricating, all is going. And this is what is actually going and say driving a ship or moving a rail, electric locomotive or whatever it is, a truck. For whatever 100 units, only 55, 40 units is actually getting into doing the job. And we call it the useful energy. Now let us think, is it useful energy? Is it really useful energy? It is propelling an aircraft. Yeah, that's why it is useful. But what happens? The ship has, what is energy? Energy is nothing but potential energy or kinetic energy, correct, or heat energy. These are the forms of energy. So when I propel a ship, the ship is gaining in kinetic energy. And if I don't propel, what will happen? The ship will come to a stop. Why? Because it is overcoming forces of friction because of seawater. And the moment you use the word friction, friction is the dissipation of heat into the atmosphere. Friction is heat into the atmosphere contributing to global warming. So this is a myth that we say that we have useful energy. No energy is useful. Useful from our perspective. It is air conditioning. Yeah, useful. Why? Because I am feeling comfortable. But the energy is not useful. Whichever energy is coming out of fossil fuel is going and getting added into the atmosphere, contributing to global warming. Every friction is actually increasing the global warming. Same in a steam plant. You see, whatever you burnt, that is going into if not now, indirectly, it will again go back to the atmosphere only. The energy is gone and not reversible. So what is the alternative? Maybe solar, wind. Yes, because this is probably makes sense because this energy is coming because it is coming from the sun. I'm using it. I'm using it for whatever, driving a ship or whatever, suppose. And then the friction will again put it back. But this is this energy which is coming and going out. So the balance is maintained. Solar, correct, wind, all this balance is maintained. It is not then external. Third player is not involved. Third player is my fossil fuel. Third player is my fossil fuel. I am not taking you the third player and then adding energy to the, adding heat to the atmosphere. So probably the answer is development of these type of technologies, which people are doing. 100% people, everybody is looking at it. The shore is also looking at it. Ships are also looking at it. So moving energy, moving away from the fossil fuel might be the answer. But as a non-environmental engineer, we are not environmental engineer. We can't do research here. As an individual, small-time guy, like I have only so much limited capacity. How can I contribute? You see that we really don't know if science has all the solutions. Technology and science historically have always replaced one problem with another problem. Maybe the solution lies in reducing greed at the individual. I want to make myself right. I don't like 25 degrees, my room. I want it to be 18 degrees to feel very chill. I'll make it 16 and put a blanket over me and make my comfortable. Greed, comfort. And that is what is also adding to global warming. Solution lies in reducing greed at the individual level, personal level. But then the line between development and greed is very fuzzy. Where do you say this is greed and this is development? That is very fuzzy. So that means without, of course, I am not competent, of course, to offer a solution because I am not the expert, subject matter expert. But I can only make you aware of the complications, how complex this topic is. People are there, a lot of evolved people are there, scientists who are doing a lot of things are happening. But you have to remember that every scientist or every professional in the energy field and in the environmental field basically is finding a solution for our greed. That is what is the punchline. I would like to stop my presentation with a little bit of this final verdict. I won't call it as a verdict because I'm not competent to give a verdict. But that's what it is. This is my view as a mariner, as a common man. So thank you so much for having given me this opportunity.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you very much, Ramesh. Fantastic lecture. And half of it, of course, we are having that marine topics, and then some of us are there. And thanks a lot for everything. And any questions? Anybody?
No questions, but session is excellent. Thank you. Myself,
you,
Engineer Iei Tnsc, Honorary Secretary of Hosur Local Center. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Murugesan.
Thank you.
Anybody from our side, from marine engineering side?
Oh, marine engineers are not allowed. Marine engineers are not allowed.
Not allowed.
They will only ask some very what do you call it?
Information, Ramesh, a car, to produce a car, we need 150 tons of water. To produce a mobile phone, you need 15 tons of water. This is what the status now.
Okay.
That is why all the industries are in India now.
Okay.
Energy has been not there in rest of the places. China, India has been natural energy, all this resources has been used. And they also says this wind energy and what you're talking about, solar, is not a green energy. Because production of those windmills, and then that is also questionable now.
What people are telling is this windmill and all this is great, but after that, the storage and then the batteries, then that is a different problem. How to control, what to do with those batteries?
There for solar also it is there. Even production itself, they consume a lot of energy, not sustainable energy.
It is not sustainable, that also. Huh? Then where is the solution? I really don't know.
That is also
Anyway, we'll have this discussion in our IMEI forum. Now I will request Mr. Sivaraju. Secretary. Sivaraju, unmute.
Sir, Chairman, sir. Interesting about commercial. the business is going to be, future business is on water transport only. Most of the cargo will be only water. That's what they say in future.
Yeah, that is right. Indian waterways, and then people are all
Yeah.
talking about water transport. And already it is started in Paradeep, I suppose. Yesterday I saw that sea trade. Now Paradeep they have started. And like that, every state now they will start that.
And thank you, sir. And cruise vessels, what I was going through the subject, they said they cannot use the recycled water. All are in the plastic, like mineral water only can be given to the passengers. I was wondering, why can't they can be made as a recycle, like RO water, whatever. I'm wondering, is it the regulation says or is a company policy? Any idea?
Anyway, we will see this one in our forum, Ramakrishnan. Huh? Because other people are also there. Sivaraju?
Yes, sir. Sir, yes, sir. What
are thanks?
Okay, sir.
The screen is yours.
Yes, sir. Sir, good evening to all fellow engineers. On behalf of the Institution of Engineers India, Tamil Nadu State Center, I thank our chairman, Engineer S. Kannan sir, who graced us his presence and support. I would like to thank respected chief guest and speaker, Engineer Ramesh Subramanian sir, founder and consultant of RMET Consultancy, Chennai. The talk is very informative and very useful to all of us. Thank you, sir. Dr. T.M. Gunaraja sir, past president of Iei, Engineer Ramadas, immediate first chairman, Iei Tamil Nadu State Center, Dr. S. Karupusamy sir, joint honorary secretary, Iei Tnsc, Engineer D. Gokul, joint honorary secretary, Iei Tnsc, state council member and division wise council members, committee members, and all local center chairmen, secretaries, and members for their presence and support for successful completion of this online meeting, World Water Day. Theme, groundwater, making the invisible visible. Topic, conservation of water, mariners' point of view. I must thank the organizing team to make this online Zoom meeting successful. Once again, I would like to thank all very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.